Hi, students and family members. It's Mr. Panza, focused on this question. How do we identify and write clauses, both independent and dependent clauses, in order to create a complete complex sentence? We've reviewed what this is. Now it's time to quiz. So let's take a look at a very brief review. Remember, there's a difference between dependent and independent. A dependent clause contains a subject and a verb but does not express a complete thought, like the example below and the underlined. That's a dependent clause, because he is wearing a tie. A dependent clause is often marked with a dependent word marker. Dependent markers could include after, although, as, because, before, since, though, unless, until, when, whenever, and while. Independent clauses have a subject and a verb and express a complete thought. For example, the underlined piece in this sentence below, people think he is important, is a complete thought and can stand alone. That's what makes it the independent clause of this complex sentence. An independent clause is a complete sentence. Let's try these questions and see how well we know about complex sentences. First, in the first 4 problems, the directions are mark the letter of the independent clause. Remember, that means it can stand alone and it should make sense. Let's start with number 1. Which of these 4 are independent clauses? When the tourists arrive, which is A. If you are camping, B. It is bigger than Rhode Island, C. Or although there are many cars, D. Please pick one now. The answer is C. It is bigger than Rhode Island. It's because it expresses a complete thought, has a subject and a predicate. The others do not have complete thoughts, and they are dependent clauses. Some of them even have clue words like when, if, and although. Number 2. Which is the independent clause? A. Unless you want an angry bear. B. Don't tease the animals. C. Until they can smell you. Or D. As we were driving. Pick your answer now. The correct response is B. Don't tease the animals. This is a command sentence and a complete sentence. It's also an independent clause. It could stand alone by its own and be a complete sentence. Moving on to number 3. Which is the independent clause? Before we went to sleep, A. Since we had our backpacks, B. After we ate lunch, C. Or we pitched our tent, D. Pick the correct response now. The answer is D. That's because this is the only complete independent clause that could stand alone. We have a subject, we have a verb, pitched, and a complete predicate. What did they pitch? Their tent. Moving on to 4. Which is the independent clause? A. We went to near the falls. B. Because we were soaking wet. C. When the wind blows hard. Or D. If you want to stay dry. Select your choice now. The answer is A. We went too near the falls, expressing the full thought in an independent clause about getting too close to the water at the falls. Let's move on to the final 6 questions, starting with number 5, ending with number 10. The directions say, mark the letter of the word that completes each sentence. So choose the best word and select your response to this video. Number 5. Blank, there are bobcats. We didn't see any. Which fits on the blank line? Although, A. And, B. Until, C. Or as, D. Pick your response now. The word that best completes this sentence is although. Although there are bobcats, we didn't see any. Moving down to number 6. Which of these words best fills in this sentence to make it complete? I've been starving, blank, we arrived here. Is the answer A, which is or, B, the word but, C, which is since, or D, because? Select your response now. The answer is C, since. It completes the thought and makes this sentence complete. I've been starving is your independent clause, and since we arrived here is the dependent clause. Put them together, you have a complex sentence that makes complete sense. Number 7, we stopped hiking blank, we got too cold. Which is the best word that would complete this thought? Or, which is the letter A, unless, which is B, although, which is C, or when, which is D. Pick your answer now. D is the correct response. When would make the most sense. Even though other words like although, unless, and or can all be filled in to create complex sentences, when is the one that is most appropriate for number 7. We stopped hiking when we got too tired. The dependent clause would be when we got too cold, and the independent clause would be we stopped hiking. Let's move back up to number 8. Blank, you go out at night, you might see an owl. Which is the best response to complete this sentence? A, if, B, until, C, but, or D, although. Pick your response now. The most appropriate response is A, the word if. If you go out at night, you might see an owl. When you combine the dependent clause with the independent clause, you've created a complex sentence. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 says, blank, we go to bed, we safely store our food. Which is the best response? The word unless, which is A, before, which is B, or, which is C, D, which is after. Which of these words fits best? Select your choice now. The best choice is B, which is the word before. Before we go to bed, which would be the dependent clause, could not stand alone, followed by the independent clause, we safely store our food, creates the complex sentence that makes the most sense. Finishing up with this quiz, we'll look at number 10. Blank, I was hiking, I saw a large brown animal. Is the answer A, and, B, as, C, until, or D, if? Pick the best response now. The best response is B, which is the word as. As I was hiking becomes our dependent clause. It could not stand alone, especially because it starts with the word as. The independent clause, I saw a large brown animal, could stand alone. It would make sense on its own. And when pieced together, we have a complete complex sentence. So I'm glad we've had this opportunity to go over how to identify and write complex sentences, and I hope you did very well on the quiz. Talk to you soon.